What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today's guest is a GoBundance member named Paul Tanso, fairly recent GoBundance member. I always love talking to some of the newer guys. He's a husband, a father, a multifamily real estate investor, and a recently unemployed man. He left his W-2 job. Got some background in software that's really interesting as well that we'll dive into. But Paul, welcome, man. Great to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Absolutely. We were jamming a bit on where I lived for a while, where you live now, kind of that New England area, Boston, Southern New Hampshire, all of that stuff. But let's go back to the beginning for you. Where are you from? Give us kind of the backstory of you. Where are you from? What do you do? All of that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in Massachusetts. I grew up in a town called Malden, Mass. Lived there all my life. I've never really left New England. I've been here my whole life. But got married back around 98 and had a bunch of kids, got 3 kids now, and lived in Massachusetts up until maybe 7 years ago. We moved to southern New Hampshire, mainly for schools. So we live in Windham now.
Okay. The interesting thing about Massachusetts for me, Boston in particular, was I loved everything about it except for it had one flaw. And I wonder if you know what that flaw is. One major flaw. It's the home of the New England Patriots. So I'm wondering, is that your team? If it is, we'll cut the interview right now. But what is are the Patriots? Are you a loyalist?
Stadium, you talking about?
That's your spot? That's your team?
Yeah, so I'm not a huge sports fan, although because my kids are heavily into hockey, I follow the Bruins. So I watch the Bruins actually, which
Sure.
Up until probably 5 years ago, I don't think I ever watched a full game of anything other than the Super Bowl. And that was mainly for the commercials.
That's acceptable. I'm a bit of a Bruins fan myself. I used to love going down to Friend Street to the Greatest Bar or the Harp before the game, do some of the pregame and then go in. It's funny, this morning going to the gym, I wore a Bruins sweater here in Red Wing territory, but
wow.
Yeah, not like a super fan, but enough of a fan where I keep an eye on them. So, okay, this is acceptable. We can continue. Okay. Everything's good.
Good.
All right. So you recently left the W-2 job. What was that W-2? What were you doing? How long were you there?
So I was in customer success, which is around subscription-based software, and essentially helping clients get the most out of their subscription. So essentially seeking ROI, right? So bringing customers up to speed in the cloud and teaching them about best practices and making sure that they're getting the most from the money that they're spending on whatever it is that they're subscribing to. My specialty has been around front office, so sales, marketing, customer service. So CRM is really where my focus has been. My job that I just left was around database, so data warehousing, something that I didn't have a lot of background in. Sort of could spell it, but that's about it, and didn't really dig it. And I think if I had stayed, the company I left to go there was Oracle. I'd worked for Oracle for about 10 years, and I actually enjoyed it, enjoyed the work, and was very proficient. And probably would have stayed a little bit longer if it weren't for the fact that I just was not enjoying this job. Didn't need to work anymore. So it was one of those things like, well, I've been talking to a whole bunch of people lately, doing a lot of networking through GoBundance and outside of GoBundance with people. And we're talking about putting together a syndication or some kind of a fund, or doing so much in this software idea I have, that I said, you know what? I feel like I'm wasting my time at my W-2. I need to break free of it, recreate myself, and just go for it big. So that's what I've been doing. And I can't believe, but for the past 2 weeks, I thought I'd have some free time to maybe just take a week off, do some mountain biking or whatever. And I have been busier than anything. It's just been amazing.
No, it's funny for Emerge and Ascend. So we're recording this late March of 2022. Has it been 2 weeks? You literally just left. You've been gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Oh wow! So you are fresh. Like you got that newly unemployed smell on you. I like that.
Second week.
For the Emerge and Ascend program, we had Rachel Gainsborough come in and speak. She had a prior episode. She's actually one of our most listened to episodes on short-term rental, and she just left her job. And I left my job a year ago, right? And the thing that that happened to me everybody's like, take a break. Take a month or two. I'm like, that sounds great. I'm going to do that. But it just didn't seem possible Rachel said the same thing. She's a month out of her job at the time of this recording. And it was the same thing. Like I'm busier than I've ever been. And now you're saying that as well. What is it about? Like, why are you busier than you've, I mean, you don't have a 40-hour a week block of time being taken up anymore. Like that's free now. So how the hell are you busier now? I'm curious. This is a real question because I had the same thing and I don't know if I could articulate it, but what's making you busier now than you ever have been?
Oh man. So I think I briefly mentioned that I'm developing a software concept that I had worked on for a number of years. I used in my own business for doing underwriting.
Yeah.
And I want to actually share it with the world. I think everybody I've ever shared it with has said, this is amazing, helps me sort of underwrite really quickly, but it's Excel based and it's really complex to use. So because of my software background, I know I can simplify this and throw it out there for the world. So I said, well, I've been working for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months with a company I hired through Upwork to help me do the development side of the software concept. And it was like trying to, herd cats to get time with this person to finish my design and my software spec. And now that I have the time, I have been spending 3-4 hours a day every morning doing that. I took a real estate course, and so I'm trying to get my real estate agent license.
Yeah.
I've been doing a ton of networking, and now that I have the time, I've been going out and seeing properties and just doing stuff. I used to have this very strict regimen every morning, almost like the morning routine there, Millionaire Morning.
Miracle
But it
morning.
was
Yeah,
really
sure.
for probably 20 years. I've been going to Starbucks every morning. I sit in my car outside of Starbucks. I do it, 10 minutes of mindfulness, meditation, whatever. I'd read. I'd make sure I got my reading in. Then I'd plan my day, and then I'd go off to work. But because I was going to a W-2, it was a little bit like, oh, no rush, right? I can get there at 9:30, whatever. Now I'm sitting there, I'm saying, I can't believe I'm sitting here in my car. I'm wasting time. I could be back in my office. And yeah, it's like, man, I have all the time in the world now. I could sit here and read for hours if I wanted to. And now I feel like I'm wasting my precious time because I'm hoping to carve out some time in the afternoon to get out and actually work out, go for a walk or a mountain bike or something, spend some time with my wife. And it just, this past 2 weeks has not been there.
Sergio
So,
Altamari, I don't know if you met him or not, but he's out of Philadelphia. He quit his job. He was something with the Fed. I forget the exact name of it, but he like in IT or IT security, cybersecurity with the Fed. But he left, and I remember when I was going to leave, he said, "Man, that first year, he's like, I woke up, I worked, and then the day ended. Like it was like I didn't really get serious about being, like a business myself or an entrepreneur until like year two. Not even serious, but like I didn't figure out my cadence until then. Is what he meant." And that's where I'm just now starting to like, I'm a year in about 9-10 days, right? Is my official last day that I worked a year ago. And I'm just starting to get into a rhythm because it's funny you say that. Same thing, a miracle morning every damn morning. But now it's like, no, I'm up, I'm ready to go. Like, like Sundays aren't like this countdown to deep breath, sigh, go into it anymore. Like Sunday's like, come on, Monday. Like I want to get this going, right? So it's amazing the difference. Amazing the difference. So let me ask you, you said you don't need to have your job. So you decided to leave at this point. How long was that the case? How long were you, like what's the soonest that you could have left in the current financial situation that you're in where you didn't need the job? Has it been a year, 2 years, 3 months? Did you just hit that ability to be completely financially free? Like how long were you working while financially free?
man, I think 3 or 4 years.
Why?
Uh, I enjoyed the work. I will say that. And I like being busy. I find that if I have a packed schedule, finding that extra 15, 20 minutes to practice my guitar or get a workout or do the extra work on the side to develop some software concept or whatever it is, I can actually wedge in a little bit of time because I'm actually get more structure in my day. I
Sure.
have to start at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and work until 5, 6 or whatever. I have more structure, so I was busier and more productive. I did test retiring, semi-retiring back before the pandemic, and I failed miserably. I was miserable. Every day I woke up and I didn't implement the structure, and I couldn't wait to go back to work. So I returned back to Oracle and got another opportunity. And stupidly left and hated it. So here I am. But
Here
this
you are.
time I think I'm going to do it right.
Yeah. No, like the structure thing. It's funny. It's like you can prepare for anything, but you have to jump into the water at some point, right? I always liken it to having kids. Like, okay, I'm gonna have kids. I understand I need to feed them and bathe them and take care of them, and they're not going to sleep initially. But you
Yeah.
can't understand not sleep until you don't sleep, right? Like you can't plan for that. Like you can understand intellectually that this is going to happen, but then when you don't, and especially for moms, right? But when you don't, and then it's like, oh my God, there's no end to this. Like I can't give this kid to anyone else. Like I got to deal with this again tomorrow. Like I got to face the day. Like everybody that's expecting
Yeah.
things of me, right? You don't know that until you do it, and then you figure it out. And it's the same thing with leaving your job. I feel like you left. Now you're in this. It's this great concept of vacuum prosperity. You've removed something, and that's why you're busy now. All these other things are coming in. This other prosperity is coming in. But yeah, like finding your way in that doesn't happen until you do it. I mean, people want to prepare and prepare and prepare and prepare. I like anything until you jump in, you're not going to really be able to find your rhythm until you do that. So kudos to you,
Yeah,
man. That's amazing.
I was listening to the 728 podcast a couple weeks
Yeah.
back, and Daniel had mentioned, he said something like, making that transition, let's say from going from seven to eight, right? You're a different person, or that the person at that eight level needs to be a different person than the person at the seven level. I've heard that concept before, where he's like, you have to sort of kill that person and recreate yourself to become the person that, the eight-figure guy is, right? And I think when you are now, a full-time entrepreneur with, I've got the passive income to support my lifestyle for the rest of my life. I don't need to work, but I would go insane if I was not busy at least 4, 5, 6 hours a day, and with something challenging, something I enjoy doing. That's why I picked up the software project and started doing the real estate class. And just because I knew in preparation for this that I need to have something with some structure to it, with some pressure, with some accountability for some period of time until I figure things out. Maybe something else will happen that will keep me busy in a different direction. But it's so true. Like you really have to spend some time and think about that person that you want that you want to be, or that what are the things that you need to do on a daily basis to become that person that you think you want to be.
No, I
That makes
completely
sense.
agree. Completely agree. No, absolutely. It's the habits that you put in place. One day you look up and you're like, oh wow, I just did this thing every day, and then you end up being whatever those habits create for you. Um, as far as well, I was going to ask you a bit about going back into your investing career. Um, let's go there. There was another question, but I'm going to go here. So let's talk about your background. When did you start? You're in multifamily. When did you start doing that, and why? I guess like when did this multifamily sort of side hustle begin, and what was the reason for it? What started it?
I started in 2013, bought my first flip with two friends. And it's funny, my investing started when I was 20, in the stock market, in mutual funds, 401k, IRA, that a boss that I had at the time told me, pulled me aside one day, and he knew I was a young 20-year-old punk that didn't know anything. And he said, I want you to make sure that you enroll in the 401k and you put at least 3% of your salary in there. And then every time you get a raise, I want you to bump it by whatever the raise is. Don't increase your lifestyle. You still live at home with your mother.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want you to put, if I give you a 2% raise, you better increase your 401k by 2%. And I invested in 401k and was the biggest proponent. Once I started seeing it build up, I was the biggest proponent. Everywhere I talked to, you have to do 401k. And around 2000, is I had about $100,000 of my own saved money in a 401k. And I joined this company called Siebel Systems, and they gave me 5,000 shares of stock options.
Oh,
And the company had just taken off. The stock went through the roof, split 3 or 4 times. I was worth $3 million on paper, with those options, right, in 2 years.
wow. Yeah.
And then the stock market crashed, and I was doing stupid things with my stock. I had taken some of it, but I also left it in the company stock, and I was also leveraging margin, and I was buying Lucent and all the stuff that actually took the biggest beating.
Mm.
I lost everything and owed the money. I owed money. In fact, my 401k was worth 40,000. So it went from 100 to 40. That's how much of a beating, because I was investing in all kinds of, tech stock.
Sure.
At the time when I had all that money, all of my friends were telling me, buy real estate, buy real estate. And I said, no, I know what I'm doing. Stock market's going to make me a multimillionaire. I'm going to stay in the stock. Well, it took me years to recover from losing everything, and I had to pay the government back like 25,000 in taxes for the options that I quote unquote earned, right? Even though there was nothing left of it. So, it took me quite a long time. One thing I did that was smart in '08, when the stock market crashed again, when Ford and Wells Fargo and all these companies were worth, $1, $2, $3, I took my entire 401k that was still $40,000. I traded it all in for all these stocks that had crashed and built it back, like, within a couple of years, it was back. But, lesson learned, right? So 3 or 4 of my very close friends, very similar to like the GoPods we have, were all in real estate. And they all finally convinced me that I need to start thinking about real estate. So I convinced a couple of them to show me the ropes. We went in on a flip, made some nice money. Right after that, I bought a condo within 6 months. Bought a condo with another one of the friends, and it wasn't really making any money. So I decided to get out of that within a year and bought my first 4-unit back in 2015.
Where
I
are
bought my
these?
first.
Are these all like Boston Metro?
Yeah, yep. The first flip was in Andover, Mass.
Beautiful town.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
We did really well on that. We did nothing to it. It was funny as hell. We were showing. We actually. So a quick story. We bought it from one of my buddy's family friends, who were just old and needed to go to a facility, and so they sold it to us for a decent price. And we started going around with a realtor looking at other examples of properties and like to figure out what level we want to bring this thing to. And the realtor said, I could sell this thing for you for 100,000 more than you paid for it, like without you doing anything to it. So we said, well, we'll give you the listing for a couple of weeks. We'll see what you can do. He had it sold the next week. So
For
we made our
100,000
money.
more?
Yeah, we made our money and we walked away with, I probably made 25, 30 grand, something like that off that between the three of us.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh God, this is easy, right? Again, falling back into the stock market example, this is easy. Anyway, so bought a condo in Londonderry, New Hampshire.
Sure.
And kept that for a little while, but I was making about $100 a month cash flow, and I just thought that's not great. So I ended up going to a bunch of real estate meetups in Manchester and met a woman from my town who, she was a big investor, had over 100 units herself, and she was doing real estate stuff on the side. So she took me around and helped me find my first 4-unit, and bought it in, like I said, 2015. And I've been buying 1 or 2 properties every year since.
Are these like 2, 3, and 4-unit, or are they bigger? What does the portfolio look like today?
The next couple after that were 3 units, then I bought a 12. I've got a 13 or 14, and I've got a 20. So they've been getting, progressively bigger.
And where are these all New Hampshire, Southern New Hampshire, Massachusetts? Where are these?
These are all in New Hampshire.
All in New Hampshire.
Yep,
Okay.
so
value add workforce type housing? Like what do they look like?
they're all value add apartments. So like I said, I've got some pretty nice 4 units, 3 units. Then I've got a apartment building downtown Nashua in the historic district.
Sure.
With that's a mixed use. So there's commercial on the first floor, and then there's 11 units, second and third floor. Then a little further north, up in Hillsborough, bought some regular, I think there's 2 6 units side by side, and then I bought a 20 unit, which is like an old converted mill. That pretty nice little property. So that type of stuff.
When's the last time you purchased a property? I'm curious.
Just in November.
In November. Okay. And this is all. So if I mean, I'm just going with progress since when I left Massachusetts a few years ago. 93 was expanding. There was more and more migration northward up into southern New Hampshire, where you are, Pelham, Salem, up into Manchester. It was just, a wider highway. I think still, most of it is. So people were leaving high tax Massachusetts for zero state income tax New Hampshire. So with that being the case, and you're nodding your head saying that's kind of what's been happening still, how are you finding deals? Because you're taking the Massachusetts low cap rate environment and you're expanding it up, I would assume, into southern New Hampshire. So how are you finding deals? Is it because you're in a Nashua, which is a bit more workforce? Like what is it that how are you finding deals in that market?
I started doing the thing that probably everybody does. Beginner, you're looking on Zillow constantly, and you're looking all those places. You're reaching out to brokers. So I still do a lot of that. Although
Sure.
I can honestly say I don't think I've ever found a property through MLS or Zillow or any of that stuff. I've found them through people. It's networking. People that know other investors, and they know they're selling, and they just happen to have their license, so they can buy and sell, help me buy and sell. I just bought a portfolio, about a 51 unit portfolio from my real estate property manager. So my broker, she works for Berkshire, but she does like a lot of her own little networking, and she does mostly investor type stuff.
Sure.
So she's brought me around and helped me buy my last couple of properties. And it was funny. She found this portfolio for me. I did the analysis, said, wow, looks like an amazing deal. So I called my property manager to make sure he would actually take it on. And he said, where are those? And I told him where he were. He goes, that's my portfolio. He hadn't even agreed to sell it yet. She heard he might want to sell because he was looking at a bunch of condos that he wanted to buy, and he was trying to figure out if he was going to get the money for it.
Yeah.
She said, why don't you sell that portfolio? So we finally, it took months for me to convince him to sell it, but he finally did. And I think we started in July, and finally in November, I bought it from him.
Persistence pays. Yeah.
It was the strangest stabilization ever, because if you bought multifamily before, I did my own property management up until June of last year. And so when I turned it over to him, I would go in with the estoppel letters, and I'd go in and introduce myself to everybody. I'd get them all converted over to my property management system, which was Buildium, all on ePay. Take on all the, get my team in there to, help start ramping up the building and revitalize it. And he already had it under management. So all I did was at the closing, I just went home. I didn't get keys. I didn't get anything. It was the weirdest thing.
Well, I'm curious.
Money now.
Was it mom and pop operated? Like, what was the upside? Like, was he not raising rents to a certain level as the owner and manager? So you had to tell the manager that owned it you weren't charging enough, bump it. Is that what happened when you bought it?
So we're doing that now.
That's funny.
He bought it as part of even a larger portfolio.
Yeah.
And his goal was to sort of sell off some of the stuff to pay for, so he recouped all his cash. And he did actually go in initially, and he redid all the units, and he bumped the rents because they were super low when he bought it.
Sure.
And he's just owned it. He owned it for 4 or 5 years, and he bought it for probably 40 or 50,000 a unit.
Oh my God!
I just paid 80,000 a unit. And I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you that I think that so. Here's because it was an odd. It was 4 buildings.
Yeah,
that made up 51 units.
Sure.
When the appraisers, 2 different appraisers, go to do the appraisals, they asked me for my analysis, my pro formas and everything. So I gave it to them, and I only did like the larger one for the entire 4 units as a whole. When he asked me for that, I had to go back and do the individual buildings, and I broke it out, based on what I saw for revenue for each of them. And I came up for the 20 unit as an example. I came up with 1.5 million for a value.
Mm-hmm.
He came back, first time it's ever happened. He told me it was worth 1.6, and I went, "That's the first time."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever had an appraiser come in higher than you were asking for debt, right?
Crazy.
I knew right away. I did some analysis on rents in that area, and I knew, as an example, let's say I've got a 2 bedroom, we get 1,100 for.
Yep.
In that area, rents should be 1350. We've just started to go through. I've got a probably 2-year, 3-year run because I don't want to kill people
Yeah.
with $300, $400, $500 increases.
Sure.
So we'll do on turns. We'll increase them, and we'll bump on lease renewals, and we'll get them up to someplace close.
Sure. Somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
At that level, that building's worth 2.2, 2.3, easy, right?
Crazy.
I mean, overnight.
Yeah.
A building, I bought 2 6-unit buildings in Manchester in 2019, at the end of 2019, for 60,000 a unit.
Mm-hmm.
Went in and renovated each of the units. I just had it appraised for 1.6, and I know it's probably worth 1.9 to 2.2.
Mm.
I'm seeing stuff now that's not even as nice, going for 190 a unit. 190.
I know.
I don't know where the prices are coming from, but
It's crazy. It is crazy. I'll be honest with you. I know interest rates are ticking up. I've had some conversations with guys who may say they're projecting they may see a stalemate. Like sellers are expecting big dollars. Buyers are saying, yeah, but interest rates going up, it kind of limits my cash flow. So sellers are, like, nah, I got to get what I got to get for this thing. Buyers are only going to pay X. There might be a stalemate as far as buying what's the word, the amount of buying that's going on, buying volume, I should say. But I mean, I don't see in the workforce housing market, I struggle to see some black cloud hanging over it that takes it down, right? There's still high demand. There's no development in that space. There isn't low income. There is in the A class stuff, but there's nothing in workforce from a develop. It just doesn't, the numbers don't make sense to develop in that sector, but there's still a ton of demand for it. So yeah, nothing's recession proof. Things will go down, go up, whatever. But I mean, if you're hedging, it feels like the most secure asset class within the multifamily realm. At least that's my take. So I love the point on networking. That's near and dear to my heart. In fact, now that you're bringing me back, man, I remember going to I started before I moved going to a RIA meeting in Chelmsford. I don't know if you ever went there. It was like a Holiday Inn. Yeah. I'd go there, once a month or whatever. Great group of people, but there's so much power in that, whether it's finding deals or whatever the case may be. You joined GoBundance about 4 months ago, I guess at this point, 4 or 5 months at the time of that we're recording this. What was the reason for joining, and what's the experience been for you from a networking and integration standpoint?
So, it's funny. I heard this a lot. I was very skeptical initially. Felt like, I'm not really sure what I'm getting into.
Yeah, the Illuminati. It's like,
I interviewed probably 4 or 5 members before I decided to join. And one of the things that I felt that I was telling my friends, my close friends, who, again, had this sort of like close-knit group of friends. We talk almost every single day, invest together, everything. I was they were telling me, Paul, you what's going on with you? All you're focused on is business and success. And like, you need to slow down. You're constantly throwing stuff at us. And like, we just want to relax. Yeah. And I thought this, either something wrong with me, or I need to find another group that can continue to motivate me to the next level. And like, it's, what I love about GoBundance are the 5 pillars. It's not just about money. It's about, family, and it's about, life adventure, and there's more to it. I have to say I was probably more focused on the success and the business than anything else. Mm-hmm. So I needed that balance. But I also needed to be around people who are just as focused on self-improvement and challenge and sharing their ideas and their learnings with people on a regular basis, people that I can look to and say, wow, like that guy's or woman, way ahead of me. I want to learn from them, right? I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. And not that I am, but I mean, I want to be the guy who's, wow, look at what he's doing. I wonder if I can go ask him a few questions and see if I can learn from him, And so that brought me in, and the stories that were shared with me by some of the members at the time before I joined were almost exactly the same. It's like, yeah, I reached a point where I needed more, and I wasn't. So on the other great thing about this is it's a self-selected group, right? These are people who have chosen to join and pay a pretty high fee to join. So it's a pretty high barrier of entry. We know that, you know, people are all sort of on the same playing field or above. You're not going to the RIA, right? For example, I would go to the RIAs and or meetups, and a lot of newbies, a lot of people who had never done this before, and you're going, oh, I have a pretty successful portfolio already. What am I going to learn from these people who haven't bought their first deal yet?
Sure. You can give a ton, but I mean, that's great. And I know that we all enjoy contributions. One of our, by the way, 6 pillars. You said 5. I just had to correct you on that.
Sorry.
It's one of our, but
new,
to your
so
point,
I can get away with that.
no, I know, but you got to get, you have to get as well, right? You have to be in a room where, yeah, I want to give as much as I can, but I also need to, you know, I need to grow myself. I have a need for myself to grow and be around those people. That makes total sense. It's funny. That lone wolf syndrome or whatever it is. I heard this said. There's a guy that I've gotten to know named David Nurse. He's a NBA shooting coach, mindset coach. He's coached like 150 NBA players. Fascinating guy. Wrote a book called Breakthrough, and he said something in the book that really resonated for me in terms of GoBundance, and that is that, you know, people in our life, the ones that were saying to you, what's going on with you? You're only focused on this and that. You got to slow down, right? It's not that they vilify or I mean, I hope they don't, or, you know, don't appreciate you, but they know you for who you are. They're focused on you and keeping you safe, right there. You have plenty of people around you that are focused on you, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your friends, whatever, right? What I found in GoBundance are guys that are focused on my breakthrough, right? It's not on me per se, but it's on, like, we want to see the future version of you, whatever you're trying to achieve. I'm focused on that with you, right? I want to hold you accountable to it. I want to be there and celebrate it with you. And I want to be there to say, absolutely, what you want is not weird. It's not strange. Yeah, let's go together for this, right? That's the thing you can't really articulate, I think, when you hear, you know, it's 10 or 15 grand to join plus the events. And like you said, it's a big dollar entry, right? But once you're in there, I don't know. I'm curious. Did GoBundance have anything to do with you leaving your job? Was there anything that you connect, or was it like, kind of a natural progression anyway?
I think it was a natural progression, but I think it gave me a little bit more confidence to know that I can do anything I want.
Yeah.
You know, I've always sort of had that feeling anyway, that, you know, inside, even so I came from say a broken home, but my mother and father got divorced when I was young. For a while, we spent some time on welfare and never really had any money growing up. And so, you know, I just sort of felt like at some point in my life, I'm going to be successful somehow, some way. And so I knew, like, okay, I just have to have the confidence in myself to just go for it, right? And seeing so many other people around me doing it, I'm like, this isn't that hard. I mean, it's really just a matter of, when you break it down, it's really just a matter of putting one foot in the other. You just have to take the steps every day to get to that next level. If you sit and do nothing, you go to your W-2 every day, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the smartest things I did without knowing it was joining before I ended up quitting. Like I you know, some guys are like, wow, you know, once I'm out of my job, then I'm going to jump in. It's like, you can do that. But for me, I mean, I was 2 years before I quit. You were a few months. But to your point, like, it wasn't like something was said or something happened or there was a moment where somebody said, oh, wow, that's the thing that unlocked me from my job. It was a progression up to that point. But having this sort of, I don't know, this ability to trust fall into this group of guys at the time that I left, and having built some community with them and you know, built a network with them. To your point, part of the reason why I was busier than ever when I left my job is because all of a sudden all these opportunities started coming to me from other guys who knew me and were around me, and they have the opportunities that they felt I'd be a good fit for. And I'm like, no, you know, no, thank you, you know, that sort of thing. So no, that's interesting, man. I'm happy for you.
I listened to for better or for worse. I loved Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
Just because he has taught me so much, he's put it into a different language, if you will. So some of the complexities of investing and the confidence in investing, he's put it into a different language, which I've read probably 10 or 15 books on real estate investing, and I got more out of listening to his podcast. Anyway, I forget what I was going to say now.
Grant Cardone about quitting the job, being around community, trust falling into
proximity.
Proximity.
He said pay for proximity. It was one of his, you know, he said it all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get what he was talking about at first. Like, look, you pay to go to an event, there's a barrier to entry, right? So the people that are there are all interested in the same or very similar things. And so whether you pay to go to an event or you pay for someone's time to mentor or whatever it is, you're not going to get that, by sitting back and going to the free RIAs and that kind of thing. It's not the right mix, right? What you're seeking out in this particular case, I'm looking for people who can help and challenge me that are interested in the same types of things, whether it be real estate investing or starting a business. And I looked at that fee and I said, okay, Grant Cardone's voice rang in the back of my head. And I said, okay, what's the worst that can happen? I don't find value in it and I don't join the next year.
Right.
But what are the best things that can happen?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's limitless, right?
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. Grant Cardone's been on another level in the last year. It feels like too. Like obviously he's been successful for a long time, but it feels like he's like hockey sticked up. Like his knowledge, the stuff he's articulating now, like he's just like he's like that Minority Report. You ever see Minority, like with Tom Cruise, like he's doing things on a screen. He's just like, my God, he's in the zone right now. So no, that's a great example. And same as me. Like I remember I've said this before on the podcast, but I say Illuminati. That's what I thought. Like, what's a mastermind? Like, what is this thing? What am I joining? Like, do we have to sacrifice chickens? Like, what happens in this thing? It doesn't make any sense to me. And then to your point, yeah, it's like I remember at the time it was 7,000. It since has jumped up to 10. Even then, there was like, wow, $7,000 plus these events and all that other stuff. And I keep coming back. I keep paying. I just paid my re-up recently. So, I keep coming back because I can tangibly look at financial reward as a result. So if I've spent $70,000, let's say over 4 years, which is more than I have, but like in tuition and events and all of that stuff, man, I mean, in equity alone, I'm over $100,000. You know what I mean? In equity and deals that I've done with other GoBundance members, partnerships I've done. So that's that. But more than that, it's to your point, like leaving the job, the lifestyle that I've been able to procure as a result of that, some of the opportunities that I've come across. So yeah, that's a great point by Uncle G, as they call him. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, as an example, like I went on to the Facebook group page, and I just posted that the same post that I did on LinkedIn the day I left. And I said, also, I'm working on this software idea. And if anybody is interested in, when it comes out for testing, if anybody would be interested, I had more GoBundance members give me their phone number or their email address and ask me, to reach out to them when this prototype's ready, than any other place I posted, what I was doing. And so it just goes to show, even in my GoPod, the four of us, when we talk about what is it we want to accomplish together, we're sort of all on the same page. And if I came up with a deal, like I just looked at a 42 unit in Salem, New Hampshire, about 10.5 million, and it just cash flow wasn't there, right? We were 5 cap, like in Salem, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So I positioned it with the team, and they're all like, "Hey, look, if this works, we're in."
Yeah.
How
it goes.
I said, I did my due diligence, and I'm like, I hate to come back and tell you that it's just not there, and it will sell. I guarantee it'll sell, but I'm not going to position something that isn't going to make us money. We all have the same goal. We want cash flow. Right. 7% isn't going to do it.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Right. No, wow. No, that's very cool though. I'm glad to hear it's, you're only a few months in and you're getting so much value. Let's jump over to the one sheet sort of question. So we'll go pillar by pillar. We talked about horizontal income. You're all in on multifamily and real estate. Is there any other areas that you invest? Are you in the stock market at all at this point, or have you completely gotten out of it, or maybe lessons learned and you're diving back in?
Yeah. So I am still in real estate. In fact, I still try and keep a balance, although real estate is taken my portfolio and I'm over invested in real estate, if you will, which is why I want another sort of avenue of business. Hopefully, if I start the software business, if it's successful, I'll have another avenue of income, horizontal. But I started a portfolio. I told you about all the money I lost in the stock market. So when I rebuilt or redesigned the portfolio, it was all around sort of bigger blue chip, dividend paying stocks. So I built a fairly large portfolio of dividend paying stocks that I've stayed invested in for the past, since '08. I haven't moved them. I built a portfolio for each of my kids. They have their 529s and UTMAs, and so they're all, you know, the pages and pages of dividends. So I'm watching that for the kids, and hopefully they're old enough now to start teaching them what it's all about. Don't know if I'll expose, like, they each have their own financial statements, which you imagine a 10-year-old has his own financial statement.
Why not?
But they have, I mean, they
Yeah.
have assets, you know, they have pretty good amount of assets. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. And I don't do any active stock buying right now.
Sure.
I'm just sitting on, and I keep tabs on the companies that I'm invested in.
Mhm.
But very similar to the buy and hold strategy with the real estate. You know, I bought in the whole, like Warren Buffett, right? I bought into companies like Pepsi and Dominion and all these big companies that I know aren't going anywhere. I was an early stage investor in Facebook, and I think that is probably the most successful. Each of my kids have a decent amount of Facebook. They're up 800%, although with the recent dip, they're going down a little bit. But
Bill.
and you know, followed the principle where as soon as the stock went up enough, I took the money I initially invested off the table and left the rest to ride, and that money has, you know, gone up 800%. So I bought other stuff with the money I originally bought Facebook with. That's really the only mad money stock I think I own in their portfolio, is Facebook. Everything else is pretty stable dividend paying companies.
When you say you're over invested in real estate, is there a target percentage that you go for in your portfolio, like of your net worth? Do you want like 50% in real estate, 80%, 30%? Is there a number that you target as far as how much of your net worth is in any one asset?
You know, it's funny. I'd say 60, 65% I would like to get to. It's way, way beyond that right now. It's probably like 85, 90%. And then the reason I'm fine with it is because it just, the cash flow.
Yeah.
So if you look at just the pure value of the asset itself, now we've been lucky and I've doubled the value of almost every property I own in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
That's not always going to happen.
Yeah.
So if you look at it just from an asset value perspective, you know, real estate's done well.
Yeah.
I don't invest for asset value appreciation. I invest for cash flow. So it's a slightly different. Like, if I were to take $1 million and buy Pepsi and get a 2% yield, you know, it's not going to equal what real estate does, right?
Right.
2-3%. So I'm not hoping to retire on 401k. I think getting back to that conversation where I said I was a huge proponent of 401k, it may have been Grant Cardone that started me thinking about the fact that 401k is really a ripoff. It's you know, it's taken people who really cannot afford to invest and put all the risk on their shoulders to manage their financial future, while Wall Street is getting richer and richer because more inflow of cash is coming into these huge funds. They're making their money on the fees, right? They're getting rich, while, you know, the average investor who's working for a W-2 saving 5% of their income is never going to be retiring off of a 401k. And even myself, I was thinking, well, maybe I'll up it to 20%. Well, it's still, you know, you're capped at, you know, what's it, 11, 12, 18,000, I think it is now.
Something like that. Yeah. 18,
per year.
5 or something per year. Yeah. Yep.
You'd need, I figured I probably needed 4 million by retirement to live off 4% a year and be able to retire at 65. I've made 5 times that in 5 years in real estate than I ever could have made in the stock market. Well, in a 401k.
No,
So
that makes perfect. It's funny, the 401k. It's like you get rolling with Ramsey and corrected by Cardone. I mean, like, you know, Dave Ramsey is the whole like, oh, just pay everything off, you know, invest in your 401k and all that stuff. And it's like you do that and it's great. You get debt free. But then you kind of learn about the power of good debt with a guy like Cardone, right? And it's like, okay, yeah. Don't have the bad debt. Very Kiyosaki principles, right? Like, you know, buy assets, not liabilities. So yeah, fine. Get out of the credit card debt. But does it really make sense to pay your mortgage off at 2.9% or whatever the hell the interest rate is today? Does it really make sense to do that? Or is debt really a bad thing? I mean, I know Ramsey got cleared out, and for him, it's like, you know, but yeah, I think that's an interesting point about the 401k being the thing. But really, when you look at it, and I mean, You ever read Money by Tony Robbins, Master the Game?
Yeah. Yep.
He goes through really good detail about like the fees and
Dalio.
the hidden fee. Like,
Yep.
yes, exactly. Like that, like what 1% versus 1.5% does over the lifetime
Yeah.
of your 401k. I mean, it's like it guts it. It's like
It were those kinds of things
half
that
your
really,
401k goes away. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
it was those kinds of things that started me thinking,
Yeah.
you know, you hear Grant say something like that and it sounds, very,
Provocative. Yeah.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because that's all I was ever taught. And uh, to start to think, well, is that really rip? You start really looking closely at it and you go, well, you know what? I will never actually be rich or be able to retire comfortably at the lifestyle I want until I'm 65, 70 years old. And Christ, do I want to wait that long?
Right.
So
A lot of life to live, man. A lot of life to live.
a
No,
lot
I
of
love it.
life, right?
I love it. Let's go over to the age defying health section. What's diet and exercise look like right now for you?
I probably work out. So I lift weights and powerlifting since I was 14, 15 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
So I have all the injuries to show for it now. I'm in constant pain, but I still love to work out. And I probably lift 3-4 days a week. And yeah, I'm in pretty good shape. I probably my body fat is probably higher than I want, but it's because I don't actually do, you know, cardio type stuff as much as I should. I like to go down and
What's
lift
that at now? What's your body fat percentage, do you think?
about 22%.
Okay. All right. What's your body weight and height? Like, give me an idea of your
I'm
dimensions.
I'm 5'9", 185.
Okay. All right. So you're stocky.
Not really, no. It's just I've got my waist has gotten a little bit bigger, so I'm probably like a 33 waist.
Yep.
But my chest is about 40, 44, 45.
Makes sense. That's
So,
big.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, like I used to be much, much bigger. My waist was a 30 and my chest was a 46. So, 16, 17-inch arms, but it's I'm not so much interested in bodybuilding per se anymore. Even the heavyweight, I get injured too often
Yeah.
to be lifting, 500-pound squats and stuff. So I've scaled it back, and now I just enjoy a little bit more of the volume stuff.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Let's go over to family. So you're married. You said 3 kids, correct?
3 kids.
3 kids. What are the age ranges?
My oldest is 17, almost going to be 18. My boy in the middle. So I have my daughter's the oldest, Ella. My son is Jack. He's 13, and my youngest daughter is 11, Abby. So yeah, the 2 youngest play hockey. My middle guy plays wrestles, baseball, hockey.
Everything.
My oldest does lacrosse. So yeah, they're keep us busy.
Yeah, no doubt. What's your wife do?
She's a nurse, pediatric.
Very nice.
So
Up
she
in
spent like 14 years at Children's Hospital in Boston.
I was going to ask you.
Now
Yeah,
she
was
works
she?
for her. What's that?
I was going to ask you, is she Boston based or is she up in? So she now works for who?
She works out of Andover now. She's at pediatric in our children's pediatrician's office. She works
Got
there
it.
now.
Got it.
She
Not a
couldn't
bad
take the stupid hours,
Yeah.
at the hospital. So don't need to do it anymore.
There you go. There you go. I love it. How about life happiness index? Where do you have that right now? And maybe what's the lowest part of that?
It's about a 6.6. And let's see, my lowest part of it are the things so music and dance is one of them. I love music, but I don't dance. So but I put a 6 there.
Okay.
My lowest. So
The
chill
lowest that
pad.
you care about, because like music and dance to me is like, if you don't care, then maybe it's a 10. Like if that's not just something you want in your life, then hey, it's right where I want it to be. It's a 10.
Yeah.
But what's the lowest that you care about?
Chill time is a 4.
Tell me about
I
that.
don't chill well. I don't enjoy relaxing. I'm too hyper. I want to get up and move, or on days where I don't have anything to do, I will create a project. I'll just do something busy, even if
Yeah.
it's mopping the floor or painting or something. I just cannot sit still. The idea I have in my brain of going on vacation and sitting on the shore with my feet in the water and reading a book and having a cocktail. I do that for about 15 minutes and then I need to go snorkel or something.
I love that. I love that. When my wife jumped into the Go Wives community, that was one of the things she said. She's like, this is like a support group for other women who married psychos. She's like, that's the like, at least it's not like they're talking about their experiences at home with their husband and like, oh my God, the guy just did it. She's like, oh, thank God. I lost the marriage lottery in some way. Like this guy just doesn't stop moving. Like what the hell's going on with him? But there's a lot of us in GoBundance, I think, that suffer from that affliction. So chill time. That
Yeah.
resonates. I completely get it. How
Yeah.
about contribution? What are you doing from a contribution standpoint?
I've been upping that. I am not anywhere near where I want to be, but I do. One of my big ones is childhood hunger.
Hmm.
So it touches my soul, and I remember like Tony Robbins, that was one of his big goals, and I sort of aligned to that. So I do a lot of giving to the what was it, Feeding America, I think is the one.
Yeah.
So I did a fundraising event a couple of years ago for that, given what I consider now to be a very small amount. I do a lot for the cancer and ALS. One of my friend's parents passed away from ALS, so um, every year now, and I think now it's more in front of my consciousness that I need to continue. And I find that even in my GoPod, we talked about that, and all of us are we may be more than the average person, but considering our resources, we probably should be, if not giving more financially, certainly more of our time.
It's
So
funny. They bring in the 401k conversation full circle as you say that. You had this mentor who, wisely said, "Hey, keep your lifestyle the same, increase your contribution. So put something, and then when I give you a 2% raise, just stick it in the 401k." And then you learned about, the 401k, what it doesn't do, and people stay there. They stay safe in that lane. And you and I were both that person. I got 401k mindset, W2, all that good stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. But the fact that you've built wealth, the fact that you've gone out and you've taken the risk, and it is a risk to go out and purchase property and purchase, certain equities or whatever to build your wealth, right? Now, rather than just, man, 2%, yay, I could throw into a 401k that may not ever do anything for me. You can now do that with this, right? With contribution. So every year, you can up your contribution 2%, and you're serving others more than you ever could by putting money in your 401k and then whatever you have left trying to contribute to other people, right? That concept of building wealth, especially in the confines of what this group we're both a part of, contribution, right? Like you can do that there. That's I don't know why that struck me, but that's the true power of the dollar, right? Is how much you can up your contribution, not up your 401k. So anyway, if you have anything
yeah,
you want to say on that, go for it. But that just struck me.
no, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. I've never, as a small example, right? A very like low level, but I've never coached one of my kids' uh, sporting teams, where a lot of my friends' fathers, have, right? And I always thought, like, what is it about me that's like, why am I not doing this as well, right? And I've just recently started. I talked to one of my son's U13 baseball coach, and I just happened to mention I'm putting together a conditioning program for the two of them. My two sons he goes, "Would you want to do that with the team?"
Hmm.
And I said, "Wow, that would actually be sort of cool. Like to put together a conditioning program and just show up and run the kids through the conditioning. I don't know how many times a week or whatever, but I thought that's a way of giving back, right? I'm giving some of my time, a charge for it, go out and get the equipment and show up and share my knowledge, right?
Yep.
And my passion for fitness. And so I'm probably going to do that. That'd be pretty cool.
Good for you, man. I'll tell you what, it's funny you say that. I coached my 7, now he's almost 7, but when he was 4, I coached his soccer team. And I didn't intend to. I thought I was supposed to be helping. And then it was like, yeah, great, you're helping. Here's your team. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm coaching the soccer team. But my second kid, who is about to turn 4, is joining his first soccer team. And my wife didn't ask me to, but I was like, you know what? I gotta do. I did it for the first. I'm gonna do it for the second guy. So I'm, gonna be coaching again here pretty soon. Which at 4, I can't do too much bad at 4. Like, hey, just run that way. But beyond that, my knowledge is gone. But it's funny. Never intended
together,
to.
right?
Yeah, never
Yeah.
intended to. I kind of got roped into it by accident. But I'm to your point, like. I'm so focused on that now. Like you got a soon to be 18-year-old, a 13-year-old, like it's just the summers run out, man. They run out fast. And I'm trying to have those summers now. I've just learned this from a lot of guys in GoBundance, right? Like, they're scrambling for those last few summers because they were in build mode. And I am too at this point with my kids and everything. But I want to make sure I do those things, even though, I mean, it does not, I know for them, it's the greatest thing in the world. For me, for me, I don't love it, but you know, I want to do it for them. I'll always have that memory. I can look back on the first one and say, hey, I did that. I coached a soccer team. I'll never do
Yeah,
it again for
exactly.
you, but I did it
Yeah,
once.
yeah, exactly.
I love it. All right, let's wrap this up with a question from the the GoBundance card game. And the question is, when did you not speak up when you really know you should have? When did you not speak up when you really know you should have on anything?
Um, Man, that's a good one. I always come back to, I don't know why, but I always come back to racial issues. Uh, they're always very sensitive to it. And whether it be um, gender bias or homosexuality or whatever, I hear a lot of joking, especially like go out with guys and whatever, and you hear it, and I feel as though I should say something. And a lot of times I don't because it's going to, whether it was a joke or it wasn't a joke, um, it's offensive, could be offensive to people around us, it's offensive to me. And I just eat it as opposed to being the activist. And I feel like there should be a little bit more activist in everyone to some extent and
Yeah.
say it in a nice way. So sometimes I would tend to not say it in a nice way. That's why I try not to because I get heated quick in those type of situations. And if you get someone who's going to argue with you, I don't want to get into big beef, with someone. So I tend not to. But yeah, I think that would be one of my trigger points.
Wow, man, that's deep. I like that. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, yeah, I resonate with that a lot. I'm in a mixed race relationship. My wife's, Dominican.
Oh,
So, our boys are mixed, and that's something I've talked to a couple guys in the tribe about that are, diverse, African American or Latino or whatever. Is like, hey, if there's folks in your network that we could bring in, let me know. Like, I'd be happy to talk to them because I think, diversity of thought, diversity of background, all of that serves any community, and we're no different as a a men's tribe or the women's tribe or whatever the case may be. But man, that's deep. I like that. I like that. I mean, listen, living in Boston, there's a deep, me myself, there's a deep history
mhm.
of racial divide and prejudice and all of that stuff. So yeah, I can imagine where especially if you're a 40 something or 50 something year old guy, you grew up in that. You grew up
Yeah,
in it's okay to make the joke or whatever the case may be, but we're in a different world in a great way. And man, that's powerful. I appreciate you sharing that. That's
yeah.
amazing.
And I'll tell
Paul,
you, my kids teach me more about sensitivity than anything else because they're just, they're taught it in school. And if I were to say not say anything, but like not react appropriately to something,
mm,
whether it be like I could say, "Wow, look at what that kid's wearing for shoes," and my daughter will correct me and say, "Why does that matter to you?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're right. Why does it matter to me? Why do I care?" Right?
yeah,
And so like I'll get corrected all the time because people watching, like you said in the airport, right? What are you people watching for? Because you love to see crazy things people do.
right.
And so you make a comment about it, right? And your 17-year-old daughter corrects you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. No, that's great though. You're right. It does seem like we're in a much more healthy era in that regard than when you and I grew up, right? Like when you and I grew up, bullying was just sort of accepted. It just
Oh yeah.
was, right? Whatever it might have been, because you look different, you sound different, you're from a different place, you're a different color. It was just sort of
Anything.
was, right? Where
Yeah.
now, I mean, it's like bullies are like the villain, upon villain. Like, you're going to be called out. Like it is. I mean, not that it doesn't
Big
happen. I
time.
mean, there's still bullying and all that, but kids feel way more empowered today to have a sense of a righteous sense around bullying being wrong, or, like you said, with the shoes, like calling out these microaggressions or whatever. It's,
Yeah.
it's much,
Yeah.
it's much more accepted now to do that than it was back then. Back then you'd be an outcast, like just be cool. Right.
Big time.
So love it, man. Paul, where can
Yeah.
people learn more about you? Reach out, whatever you want to leave with us for learning more about what you're doing.
Sure. So definitely through the GoBundance you know, Facebook page.
Sure.
I will soon have my website up, 67properties.com, which has a face right now. There's nothing more there. My email is 67propertiesllc@gmail.com, and that's the number 67 properties. And I have the Twitter 67 properties or at 67 properties. So anything 67 properties is me.
You got it. I know you got to get going. You got an appointment coming up. I really appreciate you being on, getting to know you as well. And next time I'm back visiting the in-laws, I'll be sure to connect with you and the other guys in the area.
That'll be great. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Thanks again,
Cool.
man.
Thank you.